Okay, I've got the ticket. Once upon a time, there was a young man, or let's say a boy just entering into manhood, who was bothered about his getting sleep every night. He lived in the village, and in the village, which was, of course, not a perfect hygienic condition, there was garbage and there was trash and there were stray dogs. And in the night, the barking dogs would wake him up. He would be bitten by mosquitoes. And he thought, I've got to get away from all of this. And to get away from all of this, the boy was given a bright idea. Why don't you go to the forest? In the forest, there is no garbage. In the forest, there are no dogs. In the forest, there are no mosquitoes. In the forest, there are no flies. And you'll get good sleep if you go into the forest. And sure enough, one day when he was being badly bitten by the mosquitoes, he took a decision and packed up and went into the forest. And it was so wonderful. He got such blissful sleep. No mosquitoes bothered him. He did not hear a single dog barking. So, without being bothered by flies or mosquitoes or sounds of the village, this boy got wonderful sleep for one full week. The beginning of the second week, a tiger came, saw him sleeping, jumped on him, killed him, and ate him up. This is an interesting story that was explained by a spiritual teacher when he was asked by someone in the audience whether he should take sannyas. You see, the world is full of disturbances. There are lots of mosquitoes, lots of flies, dogs that bark at you. Some of them are in your own family. Others are at your place of work. Some of them are your neighbors. Some of them are your social contacts or people in your workplace. And they serve as a great source of irritation. And to escape the mosquito bites of worldly life, people are tempted to rush into the forest, which we called external renunciation or sannyas. And then, well, then the big tiger of illusion comes and eats them up. And if you read the media on television or print or on the internet, you will find so many so-called sannyasis, so many so-called gurus who have met with great unfortunate incidents that are indicative of their having tumbled in their spiritual life. In fact, several of them, well known, are behind bars. because they thought that taking up renunciation of the external world, becoming a guru, would be the ideal solution to their spiritual life. But it turned out to be the ultimate problem. There is hardly a week that goes by when I don't meet somebody who is overcome by deep sense of renunciation. You see, life is difficult. Life is tough. Life is lonely. Life is frustrating. And because of this, one of the four reasons why people turn to Krishna. Chaturvidha bhajante mam jana sukritan arjuna. Artho arthati jignasur jnani cha bharats. Four types of people come to me. Those who are in distress, mental distress, physical distress, social distress, financial distress, romantic distress. And when they are in distress, they turn to Krishna. And I'm sure there are people who are watching me now who are experiencing, if they've been following what I've been telling them, following the Bhagavad Geeta, that they are living for God. Every action they're performing in a spirit of renunciation. If they're chanting 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the evening, roughly 32 malas of Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Offering every grain of rice, every drop of water to Krishna before consuming it. Remembering Krishna and forgetting self. Very quickly, very rapidly, they will find that they are overcome with tremendous amount of renunciation and the knowledge that this world is not important for their happiness. Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Projita Janati Ashu Vairagyam Jnanam Cha Yada Itukam. Those who worship Vasudeva Bhagavati, who is Krishna, and by worshipping Krishna in the prescribed manner, very quickly they will find that both knowledge and renunciation will come to them unasked, unexpectedly, spontaneously, naturally. And when they are overwhelmed, they look for some way by which they can renounce the world. Some of them I meet, they say, Doctor, we're doing all that you said. And really, I'm feeling so peaceful, so renounced. The world is not important to me. And now I think I shall leave my job, give up my family, leave my children, and go to the Himalayas. Some will say, I want to join a temple. I want to join a monastery. And I want to engage in complete and full external renunciation so that I do not have anything to do with my previous life. So it may be a boy, tired, frustrated, bored in some medical college or IIT, who suddenly is overcome with this tremendous sense of renunciation. And he feels that I should give up this world externally and let me become a renunciate. And because I get so many questions and I've seen this in my life so many times, I felt it was important for me to share with you what the Bhagavad Gita says about this. See, there are spiritual texts that are entirely centered on moksha, and then there are spiritual texts which are entirely settled on dharma. The texts that recommend moksha or which are salvation centered do nothing for dharma except to destroy it. These salvation centric religions that existed even at the time when Krishna appeared were scriptures that are condemned in the Bhagavad Gita. Because of these selfishly salvation centered texts and philosophies, which include the law of karma, kings gave up their kingdoms and became monks. Not only did they exist at the time when the Bhagavad Gita was spoken, but they continued long after the Bhagavad Gita. That's why you have Mahavir and you have the Buddha abandoning society, their kingdom, the governance of their people, and looking for their own personal salvation. Someone once asked, if Buddhism originated on the Indian subcontinent, then why did it not survive here? Why is it less than 3% of the population is Buddhist? It's because Buddhism is one of the salvation-centric religions. It is one of the remnants of Shramana philosophies. The other is Jainism. So if you give up your kingdom, if you give up your duties, if you give up your responsibilities, what happens? You're concerned with your own salvation, you're concerned with your own karmas. What will happen to society if everyone did that? There would be a collapse of society. That is why the Bhagavad Gita stresses the importance of dharma. He says, Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyutanam adharmasya tadatmanam srijami. Whenever there is a rise in irreligion, whenever there is a decline in dharma and a rise in adharma, at that time Krishna says, do I descend on this earth? But indeed, you should be very careful that you don't get caught up in adharma. Because by renouncing the world, by giving up your duties, giving up your responsibilities, there will be social collapse. And this social collapse that is occurring is the cause of destruction of mankind. Therefore, Krishna himself came to deliver this message. And you will say, hey, doctor, but listen, all the translations I'm seeing of the Bhagavad Gita are by sannyasis. Indeed, all the great sages who commented on the Bhagavad Gita, they are all sannyasis. So how are you saying that Bhagavad Gita does not promote sannyas? I have learned Bhagavad Gita from a sannyasi. I am hearing Bhagavad Gita from sannyasis. So my humble answer is that if you want to see the Bhagavad Gita, for what it was originally written, then you must understand what the Bhagavad Gita says very clearly. The Bhagavad Gita was spoken to refute the Shramana philosophies, the selfishly salvation centric, atheistic, non-violent philosophies, these karma based philosophies. To destroy them philosophically, Krishna appeared. The whole performance of the Bhagavad Gita on the worldly stage is a performance by Arjun, who is tortured not really so much by love for his relatives or his grandsire or his guru. He is tortured by fear of the karmic consequences of what he is doing. Therefore, in the beginning itself, Arjuna tells Krishna that if I kill all these people, what will happen? There will be no elders in the family to guide people in society. The consequence will be that women will become immoral. They will have destroyed the stratification of society. And all the sins that I will occur as a result of all this will be mine. I will suffer the sins. And the Bhagavad Gita is a karma busting book. Karma busting means it teaches you how to transcend karma. It tells you how to go beyond karma. In the Bhagavad Gita, very clearly, Krishna points out that this philosophy is not meant for those who are atheistical, who believe this world is an illusion. But wait a minute, doctor, you're saying that Brahma Satya Jagat Mithya is wrong. No, that Mithya is the Mithya of permanence. It does not mean the world is an illusion. There is only the illusion of permanence. We believe that everything that is going on around us will remain permanently. We see Nityam in Anityam. That is the illusion. Not that this world is phantasmagoria, not that this world has no creator, not that this world does not have a God, not that everything in this world depends upon the law of karma. Therefore, we must understand what the Bhagavad Gita really talks about. And therefore, at the conclusion of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells Arjuna, Sarva dharman parityaja mam ekam sharanam raja. Aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshayishami masucha. Abandon all these rubbishy religions, all religions, and surrender unto me. Do your duty as I am commanding you, and I will take care of all your sins, never fear. When you act for yourself, karmas are yours. When you're acting for God, God accepts the karmas and destroys them. Therefore, Krishna recommends that you do everything for him. Yat karoshi, yad ashnasi, yat juhosi, dadasi, yat tapasyasi, kaunteya, tat kurushama darpana. Whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer, whatever you give away, whatever charities, whatever austerities you perform, everything he says, do it for me. शुभ शुभ फलैरेवं मोक्ष से कर्म बंधने संन्यास योग युक्त आत्मा विमुक्तो मामेवैष्यसि. Everything that you eat, everything that you offer, everything that you give away, whatever charities you perform, everything he says, do it for me. And acting in this manner, you will become free of both good and bad karma. And becoming free of good and bad karma in this spirit, sannyasa yoga yuktatma. This is called sannyas, not acting for self, but acting for God. And if you act for God rather than for self, then you are a sannyasi. In the 6th chapter, again, Krishna points out and says, Anashritah karma phalam karya karma karoti yah sa sannyasi cha yogi cha na niragne na chak. A person who performs his God-given duties in a spirit of renunciation for the fruits of his labor, he is the true yogi, he is the true sannyasi, not one who lights no fire and does no work. In fact, Krishna points out that if you dare to give up the world, if you dare to renounce the world without having attained to union with God, what will happen to you? If you dare to renounce the world and you do it without having attained union with God, you will get only sorrow. Sannyasastu mahabhavo dukkham aptam ayogatah yoga yukta munir brahma na chirena adhigacchati. Krishna points out that if you have not attained union with God and you renounce the world, you will get great sorrow. But if you work in a spirit of devotion and renunciation, you will attain the divine without delay. Starting in the 3rd chapter itself, Krishna points out in text 3.3, Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Lokesmin Dvividha Nishta Pura Prokta Mayanaga Jnana Yogena Sankhyanam Karma Yogena Yoginam. O Arjuna, he tells, Krishna says, I've already explained there are two classes of people who want to realize the spirit. Some are inclined to understand the Lord by philosophical speculation, that is Sankhya Yoga, and the others are inclined to know Him through work, which is called Karma Yoga. And he continues in text 4, chapter 3. Na karmanam anarambhan naishkarmyam purusho ashnute na cha sannyasana deva siddhim samadhi gacchati. So scared Arjuna is of karma that he wants to run away from that battlefield. But in truth, Krishna is telling him, by running away from work, you cannot achieve freedom from karma. Nor by renouncing the world can you attain spiritual perfection. This is very important. You cannot say, I will not do this because it is called bad karma. If you do it for self, it is bad karma. If you do it for Bhagavan, Om Tat Sat, there is no karma. Indeed, you cannot remain a minute without being active. Nahi kaschid shanamapi jatu tistatya akarmakrit karyate hi avashya karma sarva prakriti jair guna. So in chapter 3, text 5, Krishna explains that you are made of prakriti, your body, mind, your ego, they are made of prakriti. And this prakriti is constantly acting, it cannot remain still. Therefore, you are forced to act. And no one can refrain from doing something, even for a second, even for a moment. You cannot avoid acting. In fact, he says, those who restrain their actions, but they think about the objects of the enjoyment. Karma indriyani samyamya ya aste manasa smaran indriya arthan vimudatma mithyachara sauchyate. So they wear orange robes. They carry dandas, tridanda. They act as if they are well above worldly life. And then they are found embracing their disciples and their videos are put up on the internet. So such a person is called a hypocrite, a mithyacharasa uchyate. This is called a hypocrite, a mithyachara. But on the other hand, Krishna points out in text 7 of chapter 3 that yastva indriyani manasa niyamarabhyate arjuna karma indriya karma yogam asaktasa vishishyate. On the other hand, one who controls the senses by the mind, who engages in active organs in works of devotion without attachment, such a person is by far superior. Remember, thinking is the problem, action is the solution. Thinking is the problem, action is the solution. Your karmas are not at the level of your actions, your karmas are at the level of your thinking. Therefore, if you engage your organs of action in acts of devotion, remembering God and forgetting self, there is no karma. It's so important to understand this, so important. And therefore, one becomes purified through action. And that's why all of us must act. And because none of us want to be bound by karmas, we act for God. Yagnarthart karmano nyatra loko yam karma bandhana tadartham karma kaunteya mukta sangha samachara. All actions that are performed as a sacrifice to the Lord are free of karma. And other actions, they bind you to this world, bind you to karma. But what you may say to me, what if I have already attained union with God? Why can't I take sannyas? Why can't I wear orange robe? So this is addressed in chapter 3 by text 17 by Krishna. Yastva atmarhatireva syad atmatriptascha manava atmanyeva cha santushtas tasya karyam na vidyate. Those who take delight in the spirit, who are illumined by the divine, who rejoices in and is satisfied with the Lord only, fully satiated. For him there is no duty, because he has attained yoga, he has attained union with God. So, of course, he is constantly absorbed in God. And then Krishna points out, Naiva tasya kritenartho na akritenaha kaschanaha. No chasya sarva bhuteshu kaschidartha vyapashraya. A self-realized person has no purpose to fulfill in the discharge of his prescribed duties. He has no reason to work, but he also has no reason not to perform such work. Everyone has a reason to work for their purification. Kayena manasa indriya kevaler indriyarapi yogina karma kurvanti sangam tyaktva atma shuddhe. Kayena with the body, manasa buddhaya with the mind, with the intelligence. Kevaler indriyarapi with his senses. Yogina karma kurvanti. Even if they are yogis, they continue to perform acts of devotion. Why? Atma Shuddhe, for the purification of their soul. And such a person who has attained to union with God, there is no reason for him, you may say, to be purified by work. But indeed, he says, he has no reason not to work either. He has no reason not to work either. He has no reason to work and he has no reason not to work also. And he points out, he gives a direct instruction in chapter 3, text 19. If you have attained and realized God, he says, Tasmadasakta satatam karyam karma samacharaha asakto hi acharan karma paramapnoti purushaha. So since you have no reason not to work or to work, why don't you work without being attached to the fruits of your activities? Act as a duty for the fulfillment of the purpose of your creation. Because working without attachment, one attains the supreme. And then he gives examples of how realized people in the past have continued to perform their duty. Karmanaive hi samsiddhim astita janakadaya loka sangraham evapi sampashyam kartum arhasi. Even kings like Janaka attained the perfectional stage by performance of prescribed duties. They did not, like Buddhist and Jain kings, abandon their kingdoms and their duties, leaving their people to suffer the results of invaders, of thugs, of lawless people for their personal salvation. Janaka did his duty, and through performing his duty as a king, he attained salvation. Therefore, he says, Loka Sangraham Evapi, for the sake of educating people in general, for the sake of benefiting people in general, you should perform your work. And he goes on to point out that if people who attain God realization abandon their work, then everyone will think, Arey, this is the way to do it. Let me leave everything and let me join this temple, or let me go and to the forest and join this monastery, or let me go to Haridwar and enter this place which gives me refuge from the world. Yad yad acharti shreshthas tadta devataro jana sa yad pramanam kurute lokastad anuvartate. Whatever actions are performed by a great man, common men follow in his footsteps through imitation. And whatever standards he sets by exemplary acts, the rest of the world also follows. So if a realized soul continues to act within the world without seeking the fruits of his labor, what happens? Everybody follows him. Everybody follows him. And therefore, dharma keeps the world ticking. This is what is a dharma-centered philosophy, as opposed to an adharmic philosophy which tells you to give up your duties and give up your responsibilities. I'll conclude here. I'll take any questions you have. But next time I will cover more about what sannyas was, what it has become, and what you should be aware of. So right now, you're welcome to ask me any questions on what I have covered today. Yes, who's going to ask me the questions? Are there any questions or no questions at all? All right. So if there are no questions, then we will conclude for today. Next time I will cover more on sannyas, the sannyas Upanishads, how sannyas should be conducted, how should a sannyasi conduct himself, how can you identify, just like you should learn how to identify what is true news from fake news, how do you identify a true sannyasi from a fake sannyasi? And what does the Bhagavad Gita say about the kind of sannyasi you should become while doing your duty? While remaining in this world, you remain a sannyasi. While fulfilling your duties towards your family, you remain a sannyasi. While fulfilling your duties towards society and your nation, you remain a sannyasi. So thank you. Jai Shri Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hari Om.